Hi, Rebecca. How you doing?
I am well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. You did this brand new survey. I do a lot of shows with different people about how to manage your money and how to save and where do you want to spend it and whatnot. And one thing I don't think I've ever really heard was uh, people suffering from financial anxiety. Like, is that a thing? Like, what exactly is it?
So it's not good. We'll start there. But 85% of Americans, through our research, say that they are experiencing some level of financial anxiety. And I think about that as that we're worrying about it. We're worrying about money in the same way we would worry about our kids. When you think about 85% of us having this affect our really our happiness, our moods, our health. So incredibly high percentage of folks feeling like this is having a negative impact on their ability to feel that sense of freedom, to sleep well at night, and to have peace of mind around their financial situation.
And who seems to be most affected by this? Because typically when I do a lot of health shows as well, and one thing I've learned is men are big babies. That we all tend to the women seem to be stronger than us. So is it gender bias too? Are men suffering more? Are women suffering more when it comes to college and then paying bills, running families, things like that?
That's a great question, and we were taking some side bets when we conducted this research to see how it would come out. And in fact, 82% of men say that they feel some level of financial anxiety, and women are just above that at 87%.
Wow.
But clearly this is a universal issue, and, in some sense that's a good thing, because we really, particularly for those of us involved in relationships, you want the spouses or partners to be working together and rolling up their sleeves to figure out what it's going to take to reduce this financial anxiety. And if you have one member of a family, as an example, trying to do it on their own and their partner not coming along for the ride, that's not as effective as when it's really a united front. And the other reason that's important is each of us was raised in a family that had different attitudes about money. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I know my husband grew up with much more of a saving orientation than I did. And that can be a healthy balance, but it can also be a source of conflict. So sitting down with a financial advisor, having a chance to really talk about our attitudes about money and what our goals for the future are really good building blocks to be able to develop a financial plan and move forward.
Rebekah Barsch joins us today on Outreach Radio Chicago. She's the Vice President of Planning for Northwestern Mutual. So beyond just sitting down and talking to your partner, you brought up a good point that we all come from different backgrounds, different lifestyles, and our ages have a lot to do with that too as well. So I'm 26. I just turned 26, so I guess I'm in that millennial age group. But what are the big differences that you've seen when you're doing your research? How people have this outlook towards their finances and this anxiety and retirement and savings between those two age groups, between the baby boomers and the millennials?
So what we found through this research is that all of the different demographics, these different generations, are experiencing financial anxiety, but it's for different reasons. So the good news and the bad news, Mike, about your group, the millennials, is that they are much more aware of the importance of financial security, of financial planning, because they saw their parents go through some really rocky times. So maybe someone in their family or a family friend lost employment during the recession. There's been a lot of market volatility. Millennials are one of the most aware younger generations that we've seen. Maybe the bad news is we don't see millennials taking some of those action steps to really move forward to address that financial anxiety. And then boomers, of course, are the first generation to approach the doorstep of retirement, needing to fund that retirement largely on their own shoulders. So in the past generations, of course, employers with pensions, together with Social Security, really funded most of what we needed for our retirement income. And now each of us is responsible for somehow building this significant nest egg that needs to fund a 30 or even 40-year retirement on the back end.
That's unbelievable. And I have actually 2 points to that. Do you believe, one, on the first half of the millennials, do you think the fact that they're more involved, they're more aware of things, but because of the accessibility of the internet, they also don't feel, or we don't feel that we have to do stuff because we have a voice, we could voice our opinion, but it doesn't necessarily lead anywhere. So do you think that's also the hindrance, like as much information as we can get, it seems to be a hurdle as well? And is there like a really weird disconnect between retirement and how long you're going to live?
See, your first question was there's so much information available on the internet. Is that kind of serving the distraction of actually taking action? And the answer to that is yes. So that's not unlike surfing the internet for all kinds of information. People look on the internet for medical information, as an example. But generally, if they've got a really pressing problem, they will eventually go to a doctor to get it addressed.
Right.
Same is true in the financial arena. It never hurts to have education about different strategies, financial planning, investment strategies, et cetera. But at the end of the day, finding a financial advisor that you can trust, who can help you chart your course, is the way to go. And then secondly, related to saving, we are not seeing a significant increase in money being put aside for financial futures. And part of that is that people tend to look at how long their grandparents lived.
Really?
And maybe their grandfather died of a heart attack or something like that at a young age, and then we tend to project that on ourselves. But we know that longevity keeps increasing, and we need to wake up to the fact that therefore our financial planning has to keep pace with that, and that we can't map out when we're going to no longer be here. And that means we need to have a solid financial plan that can last as long as we do.
That's so interesting. I've never even thought about that self-conscious idea of you kind of look at your elders, because that's kind of the basis that we've almost always been taught to. Of you're gonna let your mother's father loses his hair, you're gonna lose it. So it kind of trickles down that way. But on top of not understanding how far or how long we're gonna live past retirement, how often do people prepare for their spouse to live without them? Like, I know it's a horrible thing to think about, but when one of you is gone, the other one has the burden of having to take control of everything and care of everything. How much is that being looked at nowadays? Like, are people paying attention to that?
Mike, that's an excellent question, and a couple of thoughts on that. The first one is that it is really important that both spouses or partners are invested in their financial plan. And the reason for that is that one of them is going to get left at the end of the day holding the bag. And if the plan was only good enough to get through the first spouse, then the second spouse, which is generally the women, because women live longer, they have to put up with the quality of that, or try to live with the quality of that planning that was done. Another thing where that comes into play, or another scenario, is when one member of the family needs long-term care. So they're have some kind of an illness, and perhaps the other spouse takes care of them. But then what happens when the first one is gone and the second one needs care? All of a sudden, we're starting to look to family members, and without good financial planning, that can be a significant burden or a problem in getting great care for the second spouse. So all of that are the kinds of things that a good financial advisor will discuss in helping to plan out a really great retirement.
Rebekah Barsch, Vice President of Planning for Northwestern Mutual, joins us on Outreach Radio Chicago for a few more moments. She's giving us some awesome advice, guys. I hope anybody listening today is able to get a little bit of something so they could do some research. And it brings me to this one. The show's demographic is all over the place. We're on the internet. We're doing all these different things. And as a 26-year-old, I wonder, what is the age I really need to start thinking about these type of things? When is it something that should be on my forefront? Should I be thinking about it yesterday already? Is it what is the time frame? What is the age group that you really need to be on these things behind?
So yesterday would be perfect. So the answer is that as soon as you're earning an income, is the time to sit down and begin to map out your financial future. And the reason I say that is that puts you in the very best position to take all the right steps today that will pay off down the road. Whether that means protecting your income from something that, you could lose your job, you could get injured or get ill, whatever, as well as making sure your family's taken care of and you're saving to help your kids through college, and you have an emergency fund in case something pops up and the car breaks down, and then, of course, that long-term goal of funding your retirement. But what we know from working with clients is that when we have an opportunity to sit down with 22, 23-year-olds who are earning their first income, they are in such amazing shape as they progress through life with lots of options and choices about what they want to do. So we've seen clients take time off work, change careers, and all of that comes with financial flexibility. Now, with that said, we have boomers who are sometimes worried about, I think it's too late, and I'm 55 and I don't think there's anything I can do about my situation. And the answer is there's absolutely something you can do about it, and it's better to start today and make some of those improvements and just understand what your situation is and how you can make it better than to wait another year.
Right when you get out of college, like you said, right when you start making an income, there's so many things that start piling on from loans to rent to utilities, all these different things that add up. But on the other end of the spectrum, as frustrating as it can be, as hard as it can be, what do you think is the benefit? Like you said, once you have all these things in order, what can the certainty of having, a good financial basis do for somebody, health-wise, mentally, physically? Like you've seen it, you've experienced it with people that you've helped out. How big of an impact does that make on your life?
It's a huge impact. So we do research that shows that clients and Americans who have a financial plan feel way more financially secure and have more peace of mind than those who don't. And that's regardless of whether their financial situation is in great shape. It's just having the plan and beginning to walk down the path to make it better.
Absolutely amazing. Rebekah Barsch, Vice President of Planning for Northwestern Mutual. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I know you're crazy busy, especially with all the stuff that's going around, across the pond and here locally. There's a lot of crazy stuff. So thank you. Is there any last-minute plugs you want to make? Anything that you're working on, doing that you want the listeners of Outreach Radio to head to?
Someone's looking for more information on this research and delving into financial anxiety, come find us at northwesternmutual.com.
Awesome. Rebekah Barsch, thank you so much. You've been awesome.
Thanks, Mike. You too.
Thank you so much. And we'll be back on Outreach Radio Chicago.